You want to instantly upgrade any exercise you're doing. I'm talking improved mobility, alignment, strength, power, and more. Then you need to add these three components into all exercises. These three cues serve as the foundation that I use with the hundreds of patients and clients that I work with on a yearly basis to improve their mobility, pain, and performance. And they're fundamental principles that I teach movement professionals all across the world to get their clients the same results. And I'm going to give them to you today for free. The best part is you don't have to master them all at once. I want you to think about implementing these tactics as a sequence into each exercise you're doing, whether it's in the gym or at home. Next time you do any exercise, I want you to think about where your eyes are looking during the movement. Try this real quick. Put your hands on your hips and practice your twerking skills. I want you to look straight ahead and arch your back and then round. Arch your back and then round. Do the same thing, only this time, bring your chin down to your chest. Do the same movement. You'll notice that you can't really arch your back as easily as you could. Yet, when you're doing something like a deadlift, it's not uncommon for people to be looking down the whole time. When you deadlift, you need to be able to push the hips back. If your head's down, you can't push your hips back as far. Your back will round and Zach will frown. On the flip side, if you look up as far as you can, you'll notice that you'll be able to arch your back more easily, but you can't roll your hips underneath you. That is equally a problem with movements like squatting. Because if you're looking up, you end up arching your back more, and that will limit your squat depth. Neither extreme, looking way up or looking way down, is desirable. Instead, you want to keep your eyes to the relative horizon. This keeps the upper part of the neck in slight extension, which will keep the airway open, and it gives you the best of both worlds, allowing you space to both bend forward or bend backward. And this applies to not just classic mobility drills, but also any change of direction activities. If you're looking down with any sports performance move, you're gonna get busted by your opponent. But the key term with this is you want it to be the relative horizon. Consider when I get into the bottom position for a deadlift. Because my torso is more forward, the horizon is moved from straight out in front of me all the way down to about 6 to 10 feet out on the ground. So I don't want to be up, I don't want to be down, I want to be looking at the relative horizon so my head stays stacked atop the rest of my body. The same is true if you're doing quadruped movements like a bear crawl. Here, the horizon has changed to just down towards the ground. So you don't want to be looking up here either. It's always toward the relative horizon. Head position helps set the stage in allowing you to have more motion across the board throughout your body, but it doesn't teach you necessarily how to use that motion. That's where how you touch the ground comes into play to upgrading your exercises to the next level. Anytime you're touching anything with any part of your body, whether it's the ground or a weight, you're producing internal rotation. This action is necessary for force production. Putting force into the ground is what stops us from falling over. So we need to make sure that we're contacting the ground in a way that maximizes this rotation. And we can do this two different ways. The first is touching the ground with certain points that bias internal rotation. If you're weight bearing through the foot, like in a single leg bridge, you want your weight on the inner heel and the ball of the big toe. If you're lying on your back, you're going to feel the waistband and your upper back contacting the ground. If you're on hands and knees, the kneecaps could be a point, but in terms of hand positioning, you want weight on the pisiform, which is this wiggly bone that's on the pinky side of your wrist, and the base of the index finger. Contacting the ground on points like these will allow you to better produce internal rotation. And the second thing is using these points to drive an optimal contraction. If I'm doing something like a deadlift, and I'm doing a concentric or a shortening action, I want to use those points, in this case the inner heel and the ball of the big toe, to push down into the ground so I stand up. And this also works when you're doing push-ups or any change of direction activity. but it doesn't work as well when it's more an eccentric or lengthening action. If we want to go back to my deadlift example, if I'm pushing down into the ground when I'm trying to lower the weight, well, I'm just going to stay standing up. In this case, you want to keep your weight heavy on those points. If you're shifting your weight backwards, like in the case of the deadlift, I'm going to be heavier on the points towards the back, like my heel. And these points also hold true when you're holding weights. I'm going to keep, in this case, the base of my wrist as the contact point. I'm going to do that by having the knuckles towards the ceiling. And same song and dance. When I'm doing a lowering action on this bench, I want to keep heavy on those points. And I'm going to use those points. I'm going to sense those points on my wrist to push the weight up away from my body towards the ceiling. Good ground contact can make you stronger with any exercise, even the low intensity ones. But if you don't add this one piece into your movements, your mobility gains are gonna be cramped. Try this. Do a toe touch, but take a big breath of air in and hold your breath. What you'll notice is you probably can't go as far unless you exhale. And the same is true if you do an athletic thing like jumping. Try the same thing. Jump in the air as high as you can, but hold your breath. Notice how different it feels when you hold your breath or you stay relaxed. This illustrates just how critical breathing is with any movement you're gonna do. When you hold your breath under any circumstance, your body produces tension to prevent the air from escaping. We need to use the breath to our advantage to make sure we're only producing tension when we need it, which is high force activities. If we're trying to gain mobility or express full range of motion, we want as little tension as possible. And that's where being relaxed with your breath can have such a massive impact. To have full mobility, you must have less tension. If you want to be strong and powerful, you have to be able to relax first before you can use that elastic recoil effect to move far. All of this is affected by how we breathe. Thinking about the best way to breathe really depends on the exercise in question. If we're talking about more mobility-focused drills, we want the inhale to be slow and long through the nose. I tell most of my patients and clients to think about a 5 to 8 count. Now, it might not be that long, but this is the one time that the thought counts. On the exhale, same song and dance. You want it to be slow and drawn out through the mouth. This one, I usually coach to have a 4 to 8 count. And if you get this right, you ideally should see the chest and ab wall move simultaneously on the in-breath and the out-breath. Now, this changes when we're talking about weightlifting exercises. In general, you want to pace the breath with the speed of the movement. On the eccentric or lengthening phase, you want to inhale through the nose. On the concentric or shortening phase, you want to exhale through the mouth. And then, if it's a really heavy weight, you're going to take a nice breath in through the nose, and then you want to exhale against a closed glottis, meaning you're not going to release any air. This is called the Valsalva maneuver. And this also applies when you're doing high-speed activities. When you are on the lowering or cutting phase of any movement, you want to take a quick inhale through the nose, and then when you are exploding in that movement, you want to exhale through the mouth. But of course, it happens very quick. If you want to start practicing these cues with some awesome moves that'll improve your mobility, check out this video right here. It's got my 3 best exercises that I use to get massive gains with my patients and clients.